Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Mebai Styles. I think we've got a new Patreon, so massive shout out of thanks to, I hope I'm saying your name right, M-E... Reading that right? Melby, M-E-L-B-I Styles. So big shout out to you for joining me on Patreon. Also, Guns of Navarone, RMP, Troy Shuka, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Marie Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick, Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Also below this video is a link to get £50 for swapping your energy supplier to Octopus Energy. So hit the link to get £50 back when you swap energy supplier. I'm going to hand over to whoever is in Discord and G+, so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Hey guys.
Hey, Flatoid.
Man, I should give myself a van like this.
You what?
With all the kids I'm popping out, I think I'm gonna have to go buy myself a bus.
You need a bus.
Yeah, God's blessed me with children. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, that's right. Your quiver is full.
Yeah, but now my wife says it's over. I have to go get snip.
Snip, snip.
She doesn't want any more.
Hey, Batman, who you rooting for the Super Bowl?
Oh, I don't. I'm so big.
Do
I don't really.
you watch it though?
I don't know. All the sports has become too political for me.
But I gotta grind my teeth through it. But
I gotta grind my teeth.
I do a Super Bowl party every year.
Well, I'll throw a party. That's no problem with that.
To be honest, I can't even hear what Neil is saying.
Talking what team I'm gonna pick for the Super Bowl.
You're not hearing me,
I don't
Mo?
even.
No, you're just.
No.
I can hear you, but you're kind of echoey.
I haven't even watched sports in quite a while.
Yeah.
Doesn't really interest me anymore.
No, neither am I. It's all politicized anyway. Took the fun out of it. So yesterday, that guy, I don't know his name again, but he keeps coming on and keeps saying that he can prove it in calculations.
That guy's epic.
Yeah, he's living in the world of math. So you working today, Neil?
Yes, I'm on my way to the job right now.
Yeah, gotcha.
Whew. Yeah, I'm probably going to work late again tonight.
Yeah. But all those kids.
Yeah, they're overbooked this week. So like where I'm usually doing 20 cars a week, they're overbooked like almost 35 cars for the week. A bit much. Big jobs.
Oh, that's where you saw the van, huh? You said I need a van like this.
Yeah, it's quite nice. It's almost as big as an RV.
Wow. Like a mini bus.
Yeah,
How many does it seat?
I think this one was, well, this one's custom. You can see they've taken like a bus in the backseat, converted it. So you can easily fit, I'd say 10 people sitting.
Gotcha. Well, I'm gonna go get tea since he's getting coffee and you're painting and Neil's driving to work.
We'll just listen to space. Hey, Paul.
Good morning.
Sounds quiet over there, Paul.
Well, Lily's into a video and Jesse's eating a Cheeto. So that's kind of where we're at. Trying to keep Jeff, I'm trying to work a little bit as well as cook and manage the kids. So Cheetos are our way of keeping Jesse quiet. They're little organic Cheetos.
Just to let you know, that don't bother me at all. I get a kick out of hearing that fact. It reminds me a lot of when I had them that young.
Well, I appreciate that. I think a lot of people don't, but it does kind of disrupt the conversation, especially when I'm trying to say something.
Just
How
gotta
dare you, Paul?
gotta accept it. That's how it is, right? Some people come on and they're doing other things. As long as they don't sit on, sit with an open mic with their kids or dogs barking in the background, then that's fine. If you're trying to say something and you're getting interrupted and rumpused like I am now, that's just the way it goes. The fact that it's not someone on the panel doesn't matter.
Oh, it's me talking to my boss for 10 minutes.
Or spraying. Yeah, it's part of the show. It's obviously part of my job to make that minimal, but some things are unavoidable, right? If you want to say something and your kid's rumpusing you, you can't do much about that, but attempt to get the point you're trying to make as clear as possible in the circumstances. I'd like to think that it's relatively clear. I keep a relatively clean house. The audience can actually hear what's being discussed most of the time.
Yeah, not if you're in Discord with Rumpus, though. Otherwise, yeah.
I don't. Yeah, the audience is all I'm concerned about. Can the audience hear what's actually being discussed or not? Obviously, from the opponent's side, they're going to try and make it as inaudible as possible when there's something juicy going on, because it's normally devastating. So much better to make that just get lost in transmission by talking through everything. But I like to think I keep a relatively controlled show so that people can actually gather some data from it, even when there's a discussion going on. Sometimes my own side don't even help in that regard. It's just human nature.
I'm back. So yesterday, I don't know, were you guys talking about something or?
It was Coriolis. I'm actually putting that show out with a trailer, so It's quite a lot of work to put a little 3-minute trailer together, but I love the feature. So YouTube have offered a feature now where when you've got a premiere stream ready to go, in other words, it's published and it will start in 9 hours for the sake of argument, you can now put a trailer on it. So as soon as you go, and what you'd normally get is just the card, the thumbnail, and the chat. Before now, if you go to the effort of actually putting a trailer on it, you can cut out, or I cut out, a little bit of that actual show, and so it plays. So it means, I mean, I used to do this back in the day anyway. It's just, obviously, you get less and less time to do these sorts of things.
Sure.
But now they've actually put the facility in there, and it, rather than just being a separate video that says, hey, this premiere comes out or this live stream's coming out soon, you can put it directly on the live stream. Not only that, you can redirect people now, which is, again, really useful for me because I do a lot of live streams and premiering streams. So if I can redirect somebody who's watching a stream to, over the weekend, as a classic example, often I'll publish on the main channel a couple of the shows that have only gone out on the second channel or haven't gone out at all. And I'll preempt them with the Ballbusters that went out on Jan's show last weekend for the sake of argument. Well, I can link them to the next show along once the show finishes now. That's another feature that they've just added along with trailers, which is, I just think, great. I love the features.
No, I do too. I've experienced some of them already from you. So, like you said, we get the notification and you say, oh, this is only a 2-minute thing. I'll watch it. I have the time. So everyone's got that kind of time.
Well, if you
versus
clicked
whole
on it,
show, and then they'll get tagged for the, okay, I got to watch the show now.
Exactly. If you've clicked on the show, there's a good chance you might have clicked on it thinking it's the show and then realise, oh, premiere's in X amount of time, but at least you get something to watch.
Yeah. Well, back to yesterday's show, and this guy, what's his name? He keeps coming back. I can't remember.
Something or other, I don't know.
Okay, something or the. He's definitely living in the world of math because he says he keeps saying I could show you in math, I could show you in calculations, I could show you in actual geometry, and then you're just saying, yeah, but can you show it to us in nature? I mean, it's such a simple comeback question you put to him, and it's just silence.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below this video. Also below this video is a link to get £50 for swapping your energy supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Arwin, Chocolate Saiyan, 10th Man, Flatzoid, Neil, Paul, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Morning.
Hello! Hello!
That enthusiasm comes courtesy of Burn Fat till your stomach is as flat as the earth. Very good to have you, my friend.
Good to be here, thanks.
Excellent stuff. Hopefully you'll help us out with a bit of housekeeping. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge That's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature.
Not since the Black Swan. Or before Alberoni.
That's a pretty big timescale.
What
Good job.
was there ever a geometric horizon though?
No, it was reified into existence by necessity of people who wanted a model to be real.
Yeah,
I
if there
think-
was a geometric horizon, we wouldn't be getting told now that why would you expect to see the geometric horizon? The geometric horizon is the horizon you can't see, and it only exists in the math.
Spot on. There was a geometric physical sphere edge for a horizon. We'd live on a sphere. There is not a physical geometric sphere edge horizon. That apparent location where the sky meets the ground isn't physical. It's not a sphere edge. It's not capable of blocking boats and buildings. It's a not actual position that you can't measure. But they've measured it and reified it into physical existence as a sphere edge. We've debunked it with the
So-
Black Swan.
So since this is a physics site, maybe they can go to a math forum and find it.
I don't care about that. Neither should anybody
Well,
watching.
Maybe some other Glober can come and tell us how we're forgetting about optics.
Well,
That's
we're
good.
forgetting the argument we put to them when they asserted the only reason things get blocked by way of a feet and inches value at the horizon was because of Earth curve, and we told them no, it's merely optics. They're telling us we should realise optics. Is that right, Chocolate?
Yep.
Terrestrial refraction
You
optics.
don't remember Unorthodox showed up here and told Nathan, you forgot about optics, man.
Of course, it slipped my mind when we say perspective and talk about the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve maths that doesn't include optics. Yeah, we forgot all about that, didn't we? My bad.
Well, nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve anyway.
Talking of things nobody
They
claims.
do.
Any-
They definitely do.
talking of things that people never claim. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Come on, bird
Fun-
fat.
Things displacing slightly when they move vertically, but not horizontally.
That doesn't happen in
funny
nature.
thing,
Doesn't happen.
funny thing about that, Neil deGrasse Tyson says it does move, and the atmosphere moves separate to it. New video I'm making, you'll see.
That would give
So
us
when
the
they come and
Coriolis
say
effect.
atmosphere moves with it, you can just point them to Neil deGrasse Tyson again.
What you're
Damn
detailing
you,
is
Neil! You freaking gas pressure separatist.
what
That's why
these
he's
two are now
under the bus.
detailing is the problem that the fundamentalist religious zealots on the globe side, who have a belief that we spin, hold two positions at the same time. They hold the position that we have a 15 degrees an hour drift as Earth turns underneath to give us this effect called Coriolis. They also hold it at the same time that we don't see any drift because Earth and atmosphere are assumed to be turning together, giving you no drift. So the claim is we can prove Earth spinning, we've got 15 degrees an hour drift, that's Coriolis effect, but when we point out that it doesn't happen, they challenge us to prove that the globe even claims it. Because how would we ever want to assume that Earth's turning underneath? Well, we wouldn't, but that's what the globe claims. And it just doesn't happen. The two positions have to be held by our opponents
You know,
simultaneously. AKA,
Selective drift.
God, I'm nearly
understand
there,
now
guys.
why
God,
Neil
hello.
deGrasse-
Trying to do a plug for me every show. That's why I'm stopping you. Normally I'd let you. So, cognitive dissonance in regards to Coriolis, holding both positions simultaneously, which cannot be done. It's a contradiction. You can't both have drift and not drift at the same time. And that cognitive dissonance is summarised on the show coming out from yesterday, which is the Uncut and After show, on my second channel. So subscribe today to my second channel. Also, the premiering stream, which comes out at 9 PM UK time tonight, has now got a trailer attached to it. So I've gone to the effort, it took me about an hour, to actually trim out part of the show, 3 minutes long, and put that onto the premiering stream. So it's a new facility that YouTube have offered to YouTubers that if you've got a live, I don't know if it's live, just premiering maybe. If you've got a premiering stream at the very least, you can attach a trailer to it. So that when you click on it, and it used to just be the thumbnail and the chat with no one in it, now it's instead of the thumbnail, it's a trailer. So you can actually watch that. It's 13:44, yesterday's Uncut and After show, which comes out the following day on my second channel. If you didn't know that, subscribe today to Nathan Oakley and check out the trailer. So it's 13:44, and it's got this particular guest who's describing exactly that, telling me how we have 15 degrees an hour drift by way of assumption, and then when asked to detail why it would happen in nature, he objects to us even asserting that Earth claims they've got Coriolis effect. That'd be Earth turning underneath stuff at 15 degrees an hour. So check out that cognitive dissonance laden show. It's an extended show, and it comes out at 9 PM on my second channel today. Don't normally plug my own shows, but it was a particularly eventful show highlighting that cognitive dissonance. Sorry, Arwin or Tenth or whoever it was, Chocolate, I think.
No, I was just gonna say that I understand why Neil deGrasse Tyson seems to be so upset when flat Earth is brought up, because the reason why they've thrown him under the bus, the globe side I'm talking about, is because they have to actually argue these points now, because we're here asking questions, we're debating this topic. If nobody was debating this, then Neil deGrasse could just have the freedom to run around and just say whatever he wants, touting this crap to the masses, and that would be it. But now, because some of these cats have been put in a position, or they put themselves in the position to have to defend this shit, and in order for them to defend it, they have to actually go completely against the very narrative that they're defending. That's why Neil deGrasse is all under the bus, under the tires. They call him sloppy. They even expect him to apologize for saying things like, "Oh, we can't see the horizon at 128,000 feet." I mean, this is the globe side. They've abandoned him for this, and it's because of us asking questions.
Yeah, and when it comes to the point that we disprove the claims that are being made by the globe and by their priests, which they should adhere to but don't make sense in physical reality, they throw the priest under the bus. Or ask us why we would assume that we've got Earth turning underneath at 15 degrees an hour to give Coriolis effect. Get us to cite their own claims, and often it'll be someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson. You go, here you go. Here's Neil deGrasse Tyson saying that Earth turns underneath a football so that a field goal can be made. Well, that drift is Coriolis effect. When you observe it seeming to drift through the goal from the stands, that's you observing something from a non-inertial, claimed to be spinning reference frame that's Earth. And as the ball leaves that claimed to be spinning non-inertial reference frame, it's claimed that you from the stands, as you turn underneath the ball, see it drift. Not because it's actually drifting, because you're turning underneath it on a spinning Earth. That's supposed to be the proof we spin. However, we ask anybody to actually show us occurring in nature, and they can't direct us to any example of Coriolis effect in nature. Now, examples that might have had the wind blowing the ball and Neil deGrasse saying, well, that's Earth turning underneath it, that is, ends up with the opponents at the trench level saying, nobody claims that Earth's turning underneath. Why would you get such a crazy notion that that's what we're claiming? Because they're under the misapprehension that somehow Earth turning an atmosphere being dragged along with it to cause hurricanes is Coriolis effect, when in reality Coriolis effect is you spinning underneath something, watching it seem to do something it isn't, merely because you're turning underneath it. So hurricanes, nothing to do with Coriolis, unless you're in the hurricane spinning around, watching things on the ground seem to come towards you. They aren't anything to do with Coriolis, but because there's so much propaganda and misinformation about Coriolis effect in relation to Earth and its spinning, because it doesn't happen. We don't see anything drifting. Nothing's drifting at 15 degrees now, so they have to convolute and misdirect anybody who looks into the subject. Coriolis is really simple. You on a roundabout spinning, you throw something off it. Now, the thing you throw off travels straight, but because you still spin, it looks like it curves. Well, that's supposed to happen on Earth, i.e. something leaves Earth and looks like it curves because you carry on rotating underneath stuff. But you'd actually have to observe that happening to claim it's an effect, and they can't show it happening. They give occasional examples like bullets and footballs where they're only in the air for a couple of seconds. So they don't get enough opportunity to say, well, what happens if it's in the air for a long time, like an aeroplane? We get the rebuttal, we wouldn't claim Earth's turning under an aeroplane, like it turns under a football and a sniper's bullet that's only in the air for a couple of seconds, only for us to relinquish that claim when you point out it doesn't happen. Because Earth isn't turning underneath anything. There is no Coriolis deviation.
Chocolate, I look at Neil deGrasse Tyson a little bit different. He's more of a pop culture personality. I mean, you see him in videos dancing and doing all this different crazy stuff. And he says stuff that gets the ballers mad. But then in contrast, you got a George Musser, who was with Scientific America, and he says gravity's not a force. And so now you probably be hard pressed to find a video of him dropping a mic or dancing, because one likes attention, one is just more of a scientific kind of a guy. But they both throw the ballers under the bus, don't they?
No, the ballers throw themselves under the bus when we point out that the claim from the priesthood, that would be a claim from Musser or deGrasse Tyson, does not happen in reality. Then they tell us, no, the priest who said it should happen in reality, and you've just proven wrong, he's wrong, because it shouldn't happen in reality. For example, they tell us, you and your reference frames are ruined. That's Simon Dan telling me, a flat earther, that the reference frames used to claim Earth is turning underneath at 15 degrees an hour to cause Coriolis effect, they're ruined according to him. Well, why would he tell me that a reference frame I don't use to claim Earth spins is ruined? Well, because we don't observe the effect in nature. That Simon Dan, knows damn well he doesn't observe the effect in nature, and will show us examples of men on trampolines not drifting, not displaying Coriolis effect. Why? Well, because it doesn't happen in nature, even though deGrasse Tyson claims it does, because the globe claims it does. Just doesn't happen. We don't have Coriolis, nothing's turning underneath anything. We're not seeing 15 degrees an hour drift. There is no reference frames with a deviation. And Simon Dan knows it enough to tell me that he thinks my claim of reference frames? No, that's just Coriolis effect, claimed to happen on a spinning Earth. We show it doesn't. Simon Dan tells me my reference frames, aka the claim that the globe has 2 of them to show drift, are ruined. Yeah, it just doesn't happen in nature. That's all he actually means. He's just too stupid to understand what Coriolis actually is. Otherwise, he wouldn't be telling me something the globe claims has got their reference frames ruined.
That's the same thing with George Mooser, right? We spent 2 years telling these guys that gravity is not a force. Your own side tells you that. So they went so far as to get somebody who writes for Scientific American, right? Real well respected, Mr. George Mooser, and he comes out and affirms our position. It's not a force. Tells you that blatantly, right? And they still go out of their way to tell us how he's wrong. It's insane. I don't understand how they how they fix that in their own minds. I don't know, some type of delusion.
We can't help with that. What we can do is point out to our audience where this argument starts and ends. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
George Mooser, gravity's not a force, but you can
Not
think
not
of
at
it
the
as a force.
not at the really is level.
Wouldn't you first have to observe it to be able to have a hypothesis so you can be able to test it, to actually validate it and make it scientific?
Yeah, first natural phenomena. What are we observing again? Oh, that would be bending of force space, a conceptual medium where time and space get bent by the uneven distribution of maths described mathematically.
So we've got Newton saying, don't describe it to me. And we got Mooser saying it's not a force. And we got the rest of the ballers mad.
Yeah, the only reason they get mad is because they don't have any force to hold gas pressure next to the Earth in their atmospheric law, which refers to gravity. So when they beg the question that sphere-shaped air is somehow a thing, with atmo, that's air, sphere, a shape, well, that doesn't apply until we point out that they don't have the gravity they appeal to in that atmosphere law. It's not a force.
Yeah, there. Up a creek with no paddle.
Hello, Sleeping Warrior.
Yo, yo, yo. I do have a claim for gravity according to a flirter.
Okay.
Can you see my screen, Nathan? Can you present?
Yeah. Carry on.
So, Fight the Flat Earth claims to Flatzoid. And I want to go through these because I think that they're worth mentioning, because if these are what the blurters are telling their own audience is science and experiments, we want to be aware of them, because like some of them you might be aware of, others you might not be. So he's asked, Fight the Flat Earth says, proving me right again. Did you enjoy my citation that ruined you? Where's the 11 frames, Flatzoid? I'm not sure what that's about, but it doesn't matter. He responds and says, 5 experiments that follow the scientific method for gravity. Now, number 1, he claims that Cavendish is following the scientific method for gravity. Should we pull that apart for why it's not, Nathan, or should we do the first 5 and then come back to them in turn?
I can rattle through them as you do them. There's no natural phenomena. It's conjured within the apparatus.
Yeah, there's no manipulated independent variable either. It's
correct.
Correlative.
If mass, then mass attracts mass is the hypothesis.
It's not about gravity. How about that?
Let's just rattle through them. If mass, then mass attracts mass. A begging the question fallacy on steroids with no natural phenomena or capable of being manipulated independent variable. Not an experiment.
Yeah. So there's no manipulated
Not
independent
even the
variable.
current rhetoric.
I was going to say, was going to say that's not even the current position in science, is it? Obviously, mass doesn't attract mass. We know it's not a force. So he's claiming that Cavendish follows the scientific method, and obviously it's the wrong current position in science anyway. This one underneath it,
Hold on, just before you move on.
Helion.
Just before you move on, did you say this is Craig, Fight the Flat Earth?
Yeah,
He
that's
spoke
what he's
to
telling his audience.
He spoke to a person called George Musa. We discussed him just before you got here, and to quote him, literally, it's not a force. That was directed at Craig, a quote by George Musa, when being interviewed by Craig. Literally, it's not a force.
So this goes back to a video that I cited from John. John told me about, well, there was quite a few actually. I'd picked up Gravity sometime before it, and John had pointed out this Scientific American article from George Musa. And I'd cited it, and for some reason Craig had picked me up on it and wanted to attack the claim that I was making, the citation that I was relying on that was George Musa. And he spent a whole week doing hate videos against me, right? And, you know, I've made my mistakes in the past. We all have. We're all learning this stuff, right? But to try and discredit me because it was such a volatile topic, he spent a whole week doing hate videos, right? Which I thought was quite a compliment, to be honest, but I didn't actually watch any of them at any point because there's nothing in them, no science in them anyway. But when he got George Musa on, George Musa said two key devastating blows, but he said them in such a way that Craig didn't even realize that he was disagreeing with him because it was so affable and so professional. Craig thought he was actually agreeing with Craig, even though he's telling him the opposite. And it was beautiful. It's poetry. It was that good. It's difficult to detect. But nonetheless, his first one, and I'll get Chocolate to cite the second one, but his first one was gravity is not really a force, but we can think of it as a force. Well, if it's not a force and you think of it as a force, then it's still not acting on matter. So it's not explaining why things fall down or why helium balloons fall up. It's not explaining why the atmosphere is being held to the earth by gravity. It's not explaining any of that because it's not interacting with matter. Chocolate, do you want to do the other one, the second one that you always do?
We can, we do, we must consider Newtonian gravity as a force. It doesn't mean it really is one, but we don't necessarily have to work at the really is level. George
No,
Musa.
that's brilliant. Now, Craig didn't realize that he was disagreeing with him. He thought that because he said it in such a polite way and he didn't call him a retard, he thought that he was on his side, but he was actually correcting him. And it's poetry now that he's citing the Cavendish experiment for 5 experiments that follow scientific method. Because not only does he not understand scientific method, he also knows that Cavendish isn't even the current physics, yet he's telling that to his audience. It's like, hello? Now, the second one, this I don't even know how you pronounce this, but Helion apparently is to do with a pendulum swinging next to a mountain. Now, this is, I mean, when do you ever see pendulums being affected by mountains? But this is, he claims, is complying.
Oh, sorry. I assume that was the break to give an answer to a rhetorical question. That's not a naturally occurring phenomena that we observe now, is it?
I've never seen anything get attracted to mountains.
Well, take me to your naturally occurring pendulum first and foremost.
Yeah. But this is what he thinks is scientific experiments that comply with scientific method. It's absolutely outrageous. And he claims that he's got a degree in physics, but is citing stuff that is gimmickry at best. Otherwise, so what? So you think that the pendulum does something with mountains? Does that demonstrate gravity? Or does it demonstrate that there might be some kind of air current nearby the mountain caused by the mountain that's affecting these things? Perhaps. Who knows? But again, there's no isolated independent variable manipulation to prove the effect that he believes is observing, which we don't even see in the real world anyway. So it's like, well, how is that complying with scientific method? It clearly isn't. And then we've got, this is brilliant, Eddington, right? The Eddington, they call it the Eddington experiment because they claim it proves Einstein to be correct. The Eddington experiment is actually an observation, right? There's no experiment there performed at all. It was just observation of a star that was supposed to be blocked out by the sun or the moon or both during a solar eclipse. And the claim was that if they could see the star, because the light bent around the sun from the observer's perspective, then it proves Einstein was correct. Who cares whether it proves Einstein was correct? He's arguing a totally different concept of gravity that he thinks followed scientific method. Well, there was no manipulation of anything. There's no dependent variable. There's no hypothesis. There's nothing. Yet he claims it. It's outrageous. Anybody want to add to that?
You've summed it up beautifully, I think. Got to have naturally occurring
The,
phenomena.
the pound Rebka test was a group of university students that were doing drop tests from a tall building, and they were measuring how much deviation there was in the path of falling from where they dropped it to where it ended up, and basically they got different results each time. And it's an interesting thought. It's like, okay, so where's the dependent variable on this then? What do we see drops that ever, like, do we ever drop anything off something and see that the earth rotates underneath it, and therefore that's the reason why it doesn't land where it should land? Does that ever happen anywhere?
I'm going to just take 2 points from that, just because it was discussed in yesterday's show and because it's relevant to what's being discussed. So there's two different things, two different issues with what you're claiming. You can take it either way. In this first instance, we're going to take it that we assume the example given is correct. Now, if the example is given is correct, that would be to say Earth turns underneath the dropped item to cause it to deflect, drop in a slightly different position from where it was dropped from, not directly beneath it. And it's claimed that is proving Earth is turning underneath the item that's dropped. That's the claim. That's Coriolis deflection. Well, that Coriolis deflection, which is, let's say, 1/4 of an inch over a, I don't know how tall, 200 foot, who cares, tower, it's dropping for a second. You know, a very short period of time. And it's claimed Earth turns underneath it. Well, if Earth turns underneath something that's not attached as it falls through the air, then an aeroplane also has the Earth turn underneath as it travels through the air. Exactly as asserted by Neil deGrasse Tyson when he asserts that a football deviates as it leaves the spinning reference frame of a turning Earth. That's Coriolis effect. Now, if we accept, as I am in this example, that we have Coriolis deviation, based on this claim to be experiment, actually pseudoscience, because there's no natural phenomena, we'll get to that as the second point, then we would have shortened flight times. A flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles would take 1.5 hours if Earth was turning underneath it. And it takes 4.5 hours, because Earth isn't turning underneath it. There is no deflection, which would be exaggerated in an aeroplane that's in the air, not attached to the ground, for a prolonged period of time. The second way you can argue this is the route. I've left it second.
Me.
Well, I know that you're leading on to this. So yes, is that there is no naturally occurring phenomena in this example if it's claimed to be an experiment. That would be to say, where do we actually observe in nature things drifting? And there is no examples. There's man-made pseudoscience examples like this one with contrary results and, you know, or pendulums or gyros. They're never a natural phenomena. We don't observe drift in nature. And when we point that out, we're charged with by our opponents with proving that the Earth claims it's turning underneath at 15 degrees an hour. Feel free, Anthony, to continue.
Well, I was just going to ask, is this an example of apparent deflection that he claims, or is it an example of actual deflection? Because isn't there a bit of a distinction between the two?
Yes and no. So the deflection observed is appearing but not actual. And what that means, if I give you an example with a drone on a roundabout, the drone can hover above the roundabout. And you can spin underneath it and watch it appear to come towards you and go away, come towards you and go away, come towards you and go away. As you spin underneath it, now that is because it's not actually moving towards you and going away from you, it's merely hovering. So the deflection you're observing, apparent, appearing, but not actual, is the fact that you're turning underneath it to cause that motion to appear to you. That's why it's apparent. Now, in terms of its physicality, if the drone was at the same level as your head, on the same plane, it's a very real possibility that as you rotate towards the drone, you could smack into it. So it's very much a real effect, in the same way as if it was occurring on Earth. You launch your drone on the equator, it hovers, but you, on a spinning Earth, turn away from it at 1,000 miles an hour. So in reality, how that would manifest is, oh my God, my drone's going away at 1,000 miles an hour. Not because it can fly at 1,000 miles an hour. That's where the apparent bit comes in. Drones don't fly at 1,000 miles an hour, but it's claimed Earth can turn underneath them at 1,000 miles an hour. But that just doesn't happen. So it's apparent because the drone isn't actually flying at 1,000 miles an hour. It's claimed Earth turns underneath it, the same as my roundabout turns underneath the drone that's hovering. So that's where you get the apparent effect.
So basically, none of these so far, these top 4, are not scientifically valid, complying with scientific method examples as claimed. Now, this 5th one is a really good one. The discovery of Neptune. Now, for those that don't know the story, they noticed in one of the orbits of was it Uranus or Uranus, whatever you want to pronounce it. It had a weird orbital pattern, and they couldn't really account for it. And somebody said, well, maybe there's another planet around here somewhere that might account for the perturbations or whatever that we're seeing that don't seem to follow the normal orbital pattern. And then all of a sudden they discovered Neptune was there. So you can interpret it 2 ways. They'd already spotted it and then fitted it in to make it a lovely just so story. Or it was genuine because gravity is a force. But we know gravity is not a force. So it couldn't have been that they anticipated that Neptune was discovered, because that relies on gravity being a force, which Einstein said it wasn't. So you're left with a just so story that somebody spotted a pattern. They already knew about Neptune, but they wanted to link it to Einstein so that it could be better explained and give more credibility to Einstein. That's the only interpretations that I can see. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, it's total nonsense. Everything about this is assuming distances are worked out by way of Christian Huygens' assumption of Venus being the same size. The observation within the heliocentric model is still going to take the assumption and begging the question fallacy of orbits, is it not?
Yeah, but I still can't see the science in any of this.
Yeah, this isn't science. That's Anthony's point, really. I should have just said yes. No science. Just a quick...
Let me just conclude.
Hold on, let's let Anthony conclude.
For a second, sorry. Excuse me?
I just wanted to conclude with this last point. He says thermodynamic systems are strictly defined, but in physics, the practicality isn't so simple. Really? Earth is considered a closed system. Yeah, that means rockets can't go to the moon, doesn't it? Because if rockets can leave, then it's not a closed system, is it? If gas pressure doesn't immediately evacuate into the vacuum, the low pressure system that we call a vacuum, then it's not an open system, is it? If it can do that, it means that it's an open system. But Earth, it doesn't do that in the real world. So which way around is it? Is Earth considered a closed system and therefore rockets can't go to the moon and gas pressure can then be contained? Or is it an open system, in which case rockets can go to the moon, but we don't have any gas pressure to breathe?
Oh, well, this is another example of cognitive dissonance amongst our opponents. So they need to have it both ways, so they have to hold both positions simultaneously with an open-closed system, a contradiction in terms of Mary Bachelor, if you will. So they have an open system. That's the bottom line. Earth is claimed to be an open system with a sky vacuum, where men can travel through that sky vacuum after leaving the gas pressure that we have without containment. Well, that's open. The problem being that it violates natural law. Now, when we point out that it violates
he can't call it an open system because he knows that, so he has to call it in a closed system. And
Exactly.
Flatzoid's damn right to point that out and laugh at him, because it is a closed system of some kind. Doesn't mean it's a dome. It doesn't mean that we know what it is made of, but it does mean that we can demonstrate that all. See, this is the thing. There are no experiments that demonstrate that gas pressure can coexist next to a vacuum without immediate dispersal into it. Right? All experiments demonstrate immediate, sudden and violent, in cases, evacuation. We've seen the tanker implode. So that doesn't prove that there's a dome or a container, but it does prove that you can't have gas pressure next to a vacuum. So we don't need to prove what it's made of or what it is, but we can demonstrate that their claim is false.
You know what it also shows me? It shows me how little confidence they have in this gravity nonsense. Because if they had all this confidence in this gravity bullshit, then they'd have no problem saying, well, it's an open system. But because we have gravity, we have air pressure, right?
Yeah.
But because they know that this gravity is so silly that they have to say it's closed, because obviously you need a closed system to maintain the air, but they have to say it's open because they've already told them that people have left and machines have left and all this bullshit.
Well, they do say that,
It's
Chocolate.
nonsense.
They do say that. They just don't say air pressure. They say atmosphere. And atmosphere has part of its description, although they call it a law, that you've got a gravity force holding it here, and they describe it as such. So they appeal to that as their container, i.e. sphere-shaped air law.
So just last line, and then I'll pass it on.
Which is insanity. That's why I didn't say that. I said air pressure.
And you're right
So
to.
last line, and then I'll pass it on. So the 5 cited experiments that are claimed to follow scientific method for gravity. I don't know how the Pound Rebka one is an argument for gravity, but nonetheless, the point is this. None None of them are complying with scientific method, but that's what the blurthers are being told by their priests, like in Fight the Flat Earth priest. That's what they're telling them. And it's like, they can't get past any of this. But that's the reason why they can't come in this show, because they know that none of it is science. They've got to brainwash their own audience with their own bullshit, their own convenient bullshit pseudoscience, because they know that it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. So they have to be protected by keeping away. That's the reason why they don't come in. I'm done.
Anybody got anything to add before I ask for any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? And indeed, I'll shout out James Richard. I might as well do that now, actually. The measurements of Earth curvature. Who has stretched the line upon the Earth? ? We don't need a tangent, just sticks and shadows. Thanks, James Richard, for the super chat.
I'd like to go back to the ball that he dropped it, said it deviated a quarter of an inch. And I want to beg the question just for a second. Well, if his argument is sound, then not just things descending towards the Earth, but ascending away from the Earth should also deviate because of the, because it's rotating underneath. So even if whether you're going north, south, east, or west, it doesn't matter. As soon as you start ascending upwards, whether balloon, drone, or helicopter, the Earth should also deviate under those things.
That's correct.
Does the Earth deviate under ascending objects as well as descending objects?
Yeah, we covered that in yesterday's show as well. So they have to appeal to a first law of thermodynamics violation, which is to say that as they increase the radius that they're going to traverse, as they increase in altitude, they'll have an increased velocity that the Earth is retaining. So they violate the first law. They're gaining energy from nowhere. It's like, no, it won't. It'll just have drift that we'd see and we don't.
So yeah, so it keeps up with the Earth. That means it has to be gaining energy from somewhere. So if it's not deviating, it stays with the Earth. It has to be gaining its energy. So I agree. Of course, Now you say, well, I can't talk to that.
Yeah, that's fine. We heard enough. That's the first law of thermodynamics violation. That's correct. So any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, as the 5 experiments claims that we've just talked about demonstrate, a lot of these are astrology and observation only. And because they're observation only, there's no actual experiment. To quote, what's his name? I can't remember his name. Max Planck, he says, experiment is the only means of knowledge at our disposal. Everything else is just poetry, imagination. It's probably the best quote you'll ever get, because you need the experiment, and observations alone are nothing. They don't prove anything.
They could be considered mind experiments, though.
Like emails.
Thought experiments, yeah, that's what their model exists in a thought experiment.
Yeah, but it is that, because they always say, well, it works in the calculations.
They just math something into existence to support their just so story.
Talking as mathsing things into existence. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, we use diagrams to bring these into existence, Nathan. They're called P waves and S waves, and we represent them with a child's school book diagram. And from there, you can imagine the shape of the Earth, and they're only possible if the Earth's a sphere.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
The R been here.
I think the R value is the best example of just calculating something into existence, because like you can calculate the radius, or you can measure the radius of a pizza from the center to the outside, the rim, and then you can then just apply a 3 dimensions to it and just think that pizza then becomes a football, and that's perfectly acceptable if you're a blurther.
This is a pretty fundamental part of the religious assertion that we have a sphere beneath our feet. The R value.
Oh, yes.
Anybody?
All stems in the math.
Math, you can make anything into a sphere.
There's a lot of ratios, but it doesn't make it reality.
Got a fair bit of Discord participation. I would like to linger on this a little bit. Any evidence of the R value?
Do you remember Mick West admitting that they just assume R?
Yeah, that wasn't enough. We had to assume it in modus tollens.
Nathan, it's very simple. How do you prove an R value? You take a length of something, then you tie both ends of those length Then you got your R value. It's very easy.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, you do. You just take a piece of paper. It has a length, right? You tie one end to the other. You connect them, and it's going to be into a circle. So then you have the radius. It's such a simple trick.
Saying take a 2D piece of paper and turn it into a tube.
Right.
That's
Now
wonderful.
you have a radius.
Thank you so much. So just to dwell on what Anthony said. Yes, that's correct, Anthony. Mick West admitted that we only assume the R value. It's already figured out. But at the time it seemed like a great victory, other than the response being, well, we already know we're on a sphere. In other words, their justification for us pointing out, hang on a second, this is a begging the question fallacy. You're automatically assuming the thing that you're trying to prove in this calculation you call Earth curve maths. Well, if you've already got the R value, how is this in any way, shape or form a proof? It's not, you're just begging the question. And their answer, well, we already know it's a sphere. So we had to then take it one step further and say, okay, based on your already knowing you're begging the question fallacy is correct, let's put it to the test based on the physicality you must have if that's the case. And it doesn't work. Black swan. If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959, then every distance to horizon, that would be a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, an obstruction claimed to block boats and buildings into the distance, can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And if it's beyond that, it's not a physical geometric sphere edge anymore. And that's why we have the rebuttals that we were discussing earlier, which is to say we wouldn't expect to see a geometric sphere edge. Well, that's Earth curve. Bye-bye globe model, bye-bye R value, bye-bye all things sphere-shaped. Nothing beneath your feet is sphere-shaped. We're on a flat plane.
Hello, Nathan.
Hello.
Can I ask you a question?
Gushkan, go ahead.
About lunar eclipses.
What's your claim?
For example, in lunar eclipses, you can see the shadow of the Earth on the moon.
How do you know it's a
Looks
shadow?
round.
That's me in the background with my hand up into
the shadow
a
of the
projector.
How do you know it's a shadow?
Because it's not a lunar face. We know it's an object. We can
How do we know
observe
it's an
the
object?
shadow,
How do we know
going
that?
across the
How do we
moon.
know that? Making quite a few assumptions. How do we know that?
I'm using my eyes. Seeing the shadow going across the moon, and it has
Sorry,
to be
don't
an
just
object,
assume it's a shadow.
which
Tell
is
me how you
between
know
the
it's a
sun
shadow.
and the moon.
Stop. Every time I raise a question with something that you're asserting, so far we've assumed it's a shadow, and I'm asking how you've come to that conclusion. And you've said, I've used my eyes. So you've looked at it and decided it's a shadow then. That's not good enough.
No, the other possibility is that it's being created by the moon, and that's very unlikely. So I'm saying it's a shadow.
And you've disproved that. How?
First of all, it's possible to calculate the radius of that shadow.
Sorry, how do you know it's a
And
shadow?
it is approximately
Sorry, guys in
4,200
Discord.
kilometers.
Sorry, just a second. Please, can we not have this conversation like yesterday? Constantly interrupted. Please. Please. We're back to assuming it's a shadow that you're now calculating a radius for? Sorry, how do you know it's a shadow? You haven't answered that yet. We need to get that first.
Because we can predict when these lunar eclipse is going to happen based on the location of the Earth and the Sun. And it matches perfectly because the Earth is between the Sun and the Moon.
That's an assumption.
And that's the
Sorry,
shadow.
that's another assumption. So far, your example is starting with, this is a shadow, and you know why it's a shadow, because Earth's getting between it, in a heliocentric orbital model. No. None of those things are true.
Are you honestly trying to ask me what a shadow is, how I can prove something is a shadow?
How do you know it's a shadow?
So if you look at a tree, you see it. So you look
How
at a
do
tree
you know it's a
and
shadow?
you look down and you see a shadow.
Excuse me. I ask, how do you know it's a shadow? You said, well, it could be the moon doing it, but it's unlikely. How have you disproved that? Well, I've looked and decided it's orbital mechanics and Earth's causing a shadow. No, you're begging the question. You're assuming orbits and you're assuming Earth's causing a shadow. You haven't proven these things. You're just assuming them in your example. Do you understand? Or are you just going to tell me how you're going to assume it again? 50,000 times like the other.
First of all, we have predictions and calculations.
Yeah, you
for
told
the
me that.
eclipses.
Yeah, you know when this phenomena will occur. Yeah, that's fascinating. So you can predict things like watching a clock hand go round. and decide that when it gets to that particular point, it's going to get to 1 o'clock again. Well, that's fascinating. It doesn't prove that this is a shadow. You haven't proven that. You've assumed it based on you knowing when it's going to come next.
Okay, I'm confused. You're trying to get me to prove that it's a shadow.
Are you thick or deaf? I ask, what is it now, the 5th time? How do you know it's a shadow and you need to reiterate my question back to you? Are you dumb or deaf? Yes. How do you know it's a shadow?
No,
I'm
I'm just trying to...
I'll start carrying them off, Dumbo. Yes, that's correct. We're trying to ascertain how you have come to this conclusion, and I'll tell you, it is merely your assumption.
Well...
How do you know it's a shadow?
How do you know it's a physical object? The moon, that is. We're assuming all these spheres and light being cast from one sphere against another sphere, landing a shadow on another sphere, but you're taking all of this setup for granted without any physical evidence.
Then how do you get a selenium? How do you get a selenium then? Yeah.
How do you know it's a
Hang
shadow?
on, how does he know it's a shadow?
He doesn't. It's merely his assumption based on orbital mechanics.
Just get him to say, if you don't know, mate, just say, I don't know.
Honestly, I don't want to talk about this topic if it goes that far. If
Goes that far? What, beyond your assumption? Oh, that far? No, I'm not going to discuss this if you're not going to automatically accept everything I assume. Not only have you got the assumption that it's a shadow, you've already got the cause in your assumptive statements that we've got orbital mechanics and Earth causing this shadow. You've got the cause, you've got the effect, you know all about what the phenomena is, you know what's caused it, all based on your assumption of heliocentric orbital mechanics. Now what, you're not going to go further than your assumption,
Nathan.
you bloody zealot?
No, we know that the sun is on the other side.
Don't beg the question, you stupid dick. Don't tell me what you know. This is orbital mechanics. You're about to assert heliocentric model. We know the sun's this and that and the other. No, you do not.
Of course you know it.
You bloody fundy zealot.
Because it's nighttime.
And that means orbital mechanics, does it?
It means you're basically asking me, what, can you prove that the shadow of the tree isn't shadow?
No, the sun and moon and Earth between it isn't a tree. No, a tree I can go up and touch. It's tangible.
I don't think he understands why you're asking about the shadow. He seems to be confused. Do you want to explain why you're asking the shadow question, Nathan?
Just want to know why he's assumed this.
Because we know, orbital mechanics, like I said. The sun is...
Oh, so because of what I've stated then, because of orbital mechanics being assumed exactly as I've stated, he's now going to say, well, I'm now going to use that that's already been taken to pieces by my opponent as my justification. So because orbital mechanics, your assumption that things move in orbital motions, yeah, we know. I pointed that out. I know what you're assuming.
How did he validate orbital mechanics? How did he go through that?
He
Why is that true?
doesn't. Merely an assumption. Based on an R value. Based on quite a few assumptions. The distances, for example, based on the R assumption for Earth, transposed onto Venus. Yeah, those are all assumptions too. Part of your orbital mechanics assumption. Cat got your tongue?
I think this guy can't even step away from just looking at things in his mind concerning the world and the moon and the stars as balls. I don't think he can even engage in thinking about it in a different way.
That's right.
And he can't
comprehend that someone else might be able to work beyond his assumption. And he'll even declare it. Well, if you can't work beyond my automatic assumption that I know exactly how this is working with my assumption of orbital mechanics and shadows and Earth getting in between with these non-tangible objects in the sky, well, if you won't assume any of those things alongside me, then I'm not going to play. Right?
But even geometrically, it doesn't work because for a lunar eclipse, you're supposed to have them, the sun, the earth, and the moon in the syzygy. And that's observably not the case. So, I mean,
I'd like to know what his excuse is for the is it the Selenian,
Selenian.
however you pronounce it, eclipse, where you get the eclipse claim. Yeah, you get the eclipse claim, but the sun and the moon are both in the sky at the same time, so one's not occult in the other, but they claim it anyway.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
So really,
Even call the impossible eclipse in their own model, which is cute because there it is.
just like the orbit of Mercury is impossible.
Refraction.
Hold on, let's just see if he's got a response to that. So you're being challenged by the people on the panel in regards to the Selenian in the heliocentric model not being possible, even defined as the impossible eclipse in the model. Any explanation for that?
It's pretty hard to explain, but of course. Basically, the sun and the moon appear to be both above the horizon, and wait, I need a picture of it. I'm gonna post it in chat.
So not a shadow then.
1 second.
So not a shadow in this orbital assumption then.
It is a shadow of the Earth.
But the Earth's not in the way though, is it? They're both above the horizon. Don't you understand how orbital mechanics work? One would have to be behind the other. And they're not if they're both above the horizon now, are they? So not a shadow then. Maybe some balls required. Some humility. So, we'll try once more. So definitely not a shadow then. Maybe a prolonged
So
silence.
basically, the light source is below, so the sun shines below the Earth and casts the shadow. Wait, I'm gonna have a globus here right now.
Sorry, your mumblings aren't conceding that if they're both above the horizon, we definitely don't have a shadow.
No, I'm thinking.
I don't need you to think. I need you to accept that this doesn't work. It's even described and defined as the impossible eclipse in your own model. You could just accept the title in your own model, which is the word impossible, and say, yeah, it's impossible. And that would make the shadow claim nonsense, because you wouldn't have impossibilities if it was your shadow. It'd just be blocking the light, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have these circumstances where occasionally it's not blocking the light, it just happens anyway, making it not a shadow. 6th time I've asked you to just concede your point based on the Selenian.
Nathan, could terrestrial refraction...
No, I even tested it out.
I was trying to help you out, bless him. Maybe listen to Arwin. Arwin knows his arguments better than you do.
Wait.
You might want to listen to Arwin, he's trying to help you out.
Arwin, don't do it, please.
No, let him. I love Arwin. Arwin, how dare you? Arwin is ace. Don't stop him. Go ahead, Arwin.
I said maybe it could be because of terrestrial refraction that the Selenian happens, because light can bend beyond curves and all that. So maybe light just took a corner.
The shadows bend. Hold on, the shadows bend at the rate of R then.
But Owen, they got a problem even based on that. The degrees don't line up.
Hold on, I'm asking Arwin. Did shadows bend at 7/6R or whatever derivative rate you want to apply in this circumstance? The shadows do that too, then.
Not the shadows that
the absence of light bends around a sphere,
that make
does it?
the shadow stand out. So it's the light rays around the shadow that have been bent, causing the shadow to appear where it would. Right?
No, you need an R value.
Everything in the sky
let me get
is
it
not
right.
where it is anyway. Terrestrial refraction is bending the whole thing all over the place. So even if it visually, angular-wise, would not line up, don't worry about it, because it's not actually there. It's in another spot due to terrestrial refraction. So just assuming that what you see can geometrically line up, that's actually a misassumption.
Give him too big a build-up, Elijah, so I wound him up a little too tight. Go ahead, Elijah. Thank you, Arwin.
Sorry.
Did he? I'm sorry, because I stepped away, but did he say refraction?
No, he's being led by Arwin to assume the Earth is a sphere, assume Venus is the same size as Earth, and when that assumption fails, use the same assumption of an R-based refraction value to bend light and shadows to make it work again.
Right. A paradox is better than a dead end, no?
But they only say in terms of refraction that it would be 0.06 degrees refracted, and that's not what we see either. Like it's way higher the sky.
Sorry, that
Than
percentage.
0.06 degrees.
You're giving a percentage based on the rate it bends the light around a sphere on a sphere model, though, aren't you? That's the differential percentage that you're giving, aren't you?
That is true.
Well, that would mean that you're taking an R value that you assume Earth has with a physical geometric sphere edge horizon to derive the R, transposing it onto Venus, using Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion, deriving all the orbital mechanics, and when it fails, using the R value assumed in the model that failed to bend the light at the rate of the R value and the shadow. What Arwins, I want you to repeat, if you can remember what you just said, because it was epic and it was rumpused a little bit. Can you just repeat your last statement?
Yeah, sure, that's no problem. Look, if something geometrically doesn't line up in the heavens, you can just simply assume that it's not really there anyway. It's just appears to be there because terrestrial refraction is bending all these things so far away dramatically, as it is bending the horizon into making it look like a flat plane. So if it's doing all that, then it can just as well result in that the celestial bodies don't really line up. They might sometimes line up, right, in a geometrical sense, but it's actually not all really where you think it is.
No, nothing.
Right.
But that wasn't the bit I wanted you to repeat. You said a paradox is better than a dead end.
Oh, right. Yes. Right.
Yeah,
The thing
it doesn't
is
matter
that a
that...
paradox is a dead end,
Yeah.
but at least it's a more complicated dead end.
Exactly. So at the end of this dead end, you've still got the R value required that can't be attained to move the shadow with the rate of R that can't be attained. Well, as Arwin says, a paradox is better than a dead end, isn't it? Last but by no means least, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Can I just ask what was his answer to the question about the Selenian eclipse? What was his answer?
There's no answer. You want to go around in circles with him for 20 minutes?
I just wanted to know, did he answer it?
I'll answer it. You've told him it's the impossible eclipse. How are you going to explain that?
I just wanted to know what his answer was, that's all. We know it's the impossible, but I wanted to know what he thought it was.
Did you have anything further to add in regards to the Selenian?
Sorry for...
Am I being asked?
Okay. That's fine.
Not even curious as to why they call something that actually happens impossible.
Impossible on the model, not impossible.
Exactly.
But I thought everything on their model works. Everything is explained in detail.
It's 100% perfect, the heliocentric model, except when it isn't.
And then they just call it what do they call it? What's the word they use when they call it? There's a word they use when they say something when something doesn't match.
And how does it work on your model?
Model's a pseudoscience.
Who
We don't
cares?
live on a model. I thought that was made clear. For example,
How
if
it
you
works
assume
in our
R
model-
and you assume that you've got Venus the same size as Earth, and then you have to move shadows and light around at the rate of the R that you can't attain, it's because it's a model. And the reason it doesn't work in reality, same with things like Coriolis deviation. You know, it might work in geometry, but that isn't the world. Physical nature isn't the same as mathematics. We don't live on a model. Model's pseudoscience.
Right.
When you go outside and you see an eclipse, are you seeing that in a model?
In an impossible situation on a heliocentric model, we don't stand on, Chocolate.
Yeah.
He thinks he
See, I
does.
don't live in a model. When I
No,
go
I don't
outside, it's
either.
not model. When I'm at work right now, I don't work at a job that's a model. Right? We're talking about the real world, not models.
Can you
When
just
you ask how does it work on your model? No. It just works when you go outside, guy. That's it.
Can you just
Damn,
repeat?
I
Hold on.
thought you were
I
concept
just want chocolate. I just want chocolate. Just 1 second. Can you just repeat the George Musa quote again that Anthony Riley asked you to say earlier?
Yeah, we must consider Newtonian gravity as a force. It doesn't mean it really is one, but we don't necessarily have to work at the really is level.
And with that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an aftertaste to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, smashed the super chat, subscribed, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video. Shout out to Rhett Priestley for hitting the super chat. While we're still live, I woke from a dream, saw the moon through the window, and here I am. Massive shout out to Rhett Priestley for hitting the super chat.
Oh well.
Well,
Well,
what?
down. No fuck all evidence to supporting their bullshit, but they all believe it anyway.
Well, at least you saved that swearing for the after show. I'll still have to tick that box though. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Like
tick what
profanity
box?
only YouTube. It's okay, Anthony doesn't get the memo. No swearing.
Tick what box?
I have to declare this. Every time you swear, I have to declare it. Not every time, but I mean, if tomorrow you swear again, I have to go through the process of telling YouTube in a disclaimer how the show is phrased. Now, ideally, I just want to tick the box that says none of the above. Very rarely do I tick that box. I have to go through and decide what sort of profanity, you know.
I didn't know you had to do that.
Says the man who went live with a video that was aimed at children when it was at a protest.
Oh, right. They're the same tick boxes. Right. One of them tick boxes.
No,
that
no,
I
they're not the
ignored
same
was
tick boxes. Let's get that clear. I'm just mocking you because you literally went to a potentially violent opposition to government, whatever. But when you went live, it was literally in YouTube's algorithm as this is made for kids, like Dave and Ava or Tom and Jerry. That's how you categorised that video. I had to get in touch with you and go, Jesus, you'll get your channel shut down. You can't broadcast this is for kids. You're like, does it matter? Yeah, it does. It does. It matters a lot. Quick, take it down. That's what I had to do. I had to phone you.
I remember you doing that, but I didn't realise that was the issue.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, and
let's go back onto the topic. So what is your explanation for the selenium? How do you pronounce it? Is it selenium?
Selaninian.
Oh, we know that it is a shadow on the moon. We know it's a shadow because we have a penumbra.
Yeah, but the Selenian
Hold on.
eclipse doesn't
Hold on.
support your claim.
It's giving you an answer. Did you hear it? Penumbra.
Yeah, but the Selenian debunks the
yeah.
claim that it's a shadow caused by the sun.
Actually not. It can be explained. I just don't know how to explain it in words right now. I needed to take a look on it.
He can explain the impossible
open
eclipse.
stuff in
He
a
just doesn't have the
computer
words to explain this impossible eclipse. Right, that
I
makes
love
sense.
that.
I wanted to come back. I will come back to
Isn't
the
hang on.
impossible eclipse. or
Isn't the
selenium
impossible
eclipse.
eclipse also have another flaw, which is the shadows on the wrong side of the moon?
Going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, so how could that be?
Oh, like I said, I don't know how to explain this
No.
in words.
How can the shadow be on the
Okay.
wrong side of the moon?
On a different subject, just because it's very pretty. Have you actually ever seen it? Is it Sam? What's your name? Have you ever actually seen this eclipse with your own eyes?
Selenium?
No. just a regular lunar eclipse.
Yeah, of course. It was here in Germany, like 1 or 2 years ago, a blood moon eclipse.
1 or 3 years ago.
It was about that. It was probably more like 4, but yeah, it doesn't seem that long.
It was some time ago.
Yeah. It was a while back. I just wondered what you thought, or if you noticed anything unusual as it was occurring.
No, I just noticed that. Honestly, I wasn't looking for anything there, but it wasn't too long. It was shortly.
Did you not wonder?
And that's why I
Did you
came
not
back
wonder
to
whether
the
it matched your model or not?
you can see a penumbra, and that's why we know it's
You can
shadow.
see a penumbra. What's a penumbra?
A penumbra is like when only partial light comes off, light shadow and light mixed.
It's
I
back
don't
to
know.
assumptions of shadows.
So to distinguish that, you must have been able to see the umbra as well. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known that you were looking at the penumbra,
Yeah.
correct? Where were you, in a hot air balloon?
Hold on. Penumbra and umbra are based on orbital mechanics. The assumption that it's a shadow being caused.
Hang on, I want to know where he was when he witnessed the penumbra. Because to know that it was a penumbra, you must have been able to see the umbra as well. Where were you? Were you in a hot air balloon?
I didn't look out for the penumbra like a few years ago, but I can show you photos where you can see like a dark shadow and a light shadow, like where the shadow is
Not answering
getting
my question. You said that you'd seen the penumbra, so therefore you must have been able to see the umbra to be able to contrast it with the penumbra. So where were you, in a hot air balloon? Or did you just make that shit up?
Why do I need to be in a hot air balloon?
Because to be able to see the umbra, you must be able to see the penumbra, because you need to be able to distinguish between the two of them so that you knew that you were looking at one or the other. And I don't think you were in a position to do that, because the only position that you'd be able to do that would be in the sky.
I know we can do it from the ground. Here I show you a link. Page 4, there are 3 eclipses. And
you're
these
going to show us
eclipses
the
are
penumbra from
a
the
partial
ground level,
lunar eclipse, a total penumbral eclipse, and a total eclipse, which is also called the
So
blood
just checking,
moon.
you're going to show us from the ground the penumbra and the umbra, correct?
It's going to show you the moon looking slightly different and label it as such, based on his assumption that it's shadows, with a description in the orbital mechanics heliocentric model. That's what he's going to do.
No, that's not what he said. He said that he could see the penumbra.
Nathan.
I'd like to see the evidence.
Yeah, here. First picture is a partial lunar eclipse. The second one is a penumbral eclipse, and the third one is a blood moon eclipse. You can
How
see
do you know they're shadows?
Where have you put that? Nathan, can you get that on screen so we can see it?
If someone wants to pick it up from Discord, I'll present their screen in G+ if you like.
Yeah, I'd like to see this, because I don't think this is describing what he claims. I don't think this is what he's claiming is a penumbra.
Well, we'll see.
I think this is describing the moon phase, but not the penumbra.
We'll see. Can someone grab it from
no,
Discord?
that's the... Wait.
Oh, hold on 1 second, Sam. Can someone in G+ grab it from Discord? There's no one stepping forward. Everyone's gone silent.
I can't, Nathan. I'm on my phone, so there's no way. I'm trying to see if there's a way to do it. Just give me a minute.
I can show up, but
Tenth-
they may take me some time.
10th's normally on fire. Where's 10th when we need him?
Hopefully Righteous will stick it in Master B or something.
You're going to have to be pretty high to be able to pick out the penumbra.
Sorry.
That means that you can see you can see both of them, right? So you're gonna have to be on a mountain or on a thing. And I don't think that you were. I think that you watched it on telly and claimed it.
Got pictures. We're just waiting to get them presented by somebody.
All right, Skype update, and
Thank
then
you.
I can come in.
In Master B?
Yeah, I'm just showing up there now. Give me a sec.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, you want me to post it to Master B? Okay, I can share it to Master B. That's a
Perfect.
good idea.
Yes, please.
Gotcha. Give me a sec.
So while we're getting these pictures up, how do we know that it's shadows again?
That's what I'm getting at. Because every time I've seen an umbra or
because
penumbra,
we have-
they always look like the reduction of light.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Got your picture presented. Do you want to tell us how you know that? Hello,
Wait.
guys in G+.
Yeah,
You can
what?
you can pick this up from Master B.
Wait, where is it?
That doesn't look like shadows to me. That looks just like an absence of light. Not a cast shadow.
Yeah, page 4. Page 4, I think it is. Or page 3. Page 3, sorry.
Can you confirm? Can you be specific with the page number? It's difficult to administer.
3, number 3, beginning. Hello, second.
Yeah, that doesn't look like a cast shadow. That looks like a reduction of light. Where's the casting bit? You know, like when you draw the animal's head with your hand on the wall, and you can see that where the light stops because there's a cast shadow. We're not seeing that. We're just seeing the removal of light. That indicates that it's not a shadow. And also, I don't see any Poisson spot. And normally, when you get a cast shadow, there's normally a Poisson spot in the middle of the shadow. Do you know what a Poisson spot is?
Like the darkest point, or was it? What is it?
No, it's a point of light in the middle where you. It's totally non-intuitive. It's the opposite of what you'd expect.
The Antumbra.
Pardon?
Oh,
Yeah, that doesn't look like a cast shadow to me. It looks like the removal of light. So how do you know that's a cast shadow when there's no Poisson spot?
yeah, 28 spot on.
Wait.
But I've literally sat down. I'm not even. I've only been in the bag
Adam.
now. Hey, Adam, you're live.
Okay,
Oh yeah, good.
I'll sort it out.
Oh, and this Antumbra spot is not always there. It's
Yeah, where's
like
the
on the picture
Poisson
here, for
spot?
example,
Where's the
for
casting of the
Kushner
shadow? It just looks like a
posted.
removal of light, and it doesn't support the assertion it's a shadow.
What we've got on screen, my friend, is pictures of eclipses in various states and your assumption of orbital motion causing it. That's all we've got.
Yeah, no penumbra, no umbra, no cast shadow, no Poisson spot, but they're definitely cast shadows, right?
Wait 1 second.
Hey Nathan, when he's done, I put 6 pictures of the moon going down, and the shadow is on the opposite side of what it should be if the Earth was in the way.
Okay, again, if you're in G+, you can pick this up from Master B. So I'm starting with your first pictures. Did you want me to scan through them? Just show them, basically.
Well, as you can see, the first picture, that's the moon, and you'll know that's the moon because as you scroll, it's getting lighter and lighter as the moon is setting, and the shadow is there on that top part. But the moon is setting, and it's getting lighter and lighter, so it means the sun's coming from the other side. So on the last picture, how is it that the Earth's in the way, but it's on the wrong side of the moon?
Wait, for the penumbral stuff, I have another link posted in chat on page 10 as an example. And
Hey,
yeah,
I'm showing you 6
through on the
pictures
article also.
right now.
In this article, they measured the radius of the Earth on the moon. The shadow.
How about looking at
the
the
radius of the shadow of the Earth.
How about going to the 6
Oh,
pictures
no,
and
I just
explain
wanted
why
to-
how about going to the 6 pictures and explain why the shadow of the Earth is on the wrong side of the moon?
Wait,
It doesn't seem to be a shadow, does it?
Wait, which document? Which document?
There's 6 pictures.
Yeah, you
Nathan
put
is
them in-
presenting.
They're in Skype, but he can't see them.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll see him in the show later.
Yeah, you just mean the Solonian eclipse.
No, he's asking.
No.
In the pictures on screen right now, we've got the moon on its back. Yeah? That would mean it looks like a bite of it's been taken from the top as it goes down. Yeah? The crescent is on its back. The bottom of the circle that's visible is towards the horizon. Well, he's asking, how is that possible if it's a shadow? Because it would come from the other side. It wouldn't come from the top down, it would come from the bottom up.
The solar linear eclipse, of course, refractionist, has a big deal in it. But in the solar linear eclipse, the sun is not clearly above the horizon. It just begins, like in the early morning, for example.
We're talking
Doesn't
about
matter, it's
the,
above the
hang on,
horizon.
hang on. We're
That's
talking
kinda
about the Earth in the way. How's a physical object of an Earth sphere casting a shadow on the opposite side of the moon?
I don't think he gets it. 'cause
Wait. Yeah, like I said before, that I can't explain it in words. It's difficult to explain.
Yeah,
You
because
need
it's
to
not
think
real.
like three-dimensional.
yeah, it's clearly not doing what you're claiming it's doing. It's not casting a shadow.
Can I
The
just-
sun's got a direct line of sight to it. How's that possible? It's not, is it?
Okay, I'll just explain what he's trying to...
I know, the
attempting-
sun is
guy,
not
guy,
clear.
hello.
The
I'm
sun is
talking.
not,
Hello? Hello? Just talk through me. Yeah, so
Okay.
I've got his page 10 up now. And I think I've said this 4 times. He is assuming orbital motion to cause what he assumes is a shadow. Immediately I pointed this out. I pulled it apart and looked at it a bit more detail. And here it is. Shock horror. I've already pulled it apart before I even presented it. But here we are, page 10. He's assuming Earth with orbits.
But it's a shadow because we can see a penumbra. And
that proves orbital motion and proves it's a shadow. Because you can assume
It's
that
proof-
it's being
it
caused by
proves
Earth.
that
My
it's a
bad,
shadow.
my bad, my middle of sentence interrupted you, did it? So, 5th time. You assume it's caused by something getting in the way of something else in an assumed orbit in the heliocentric model. And it's on screen for my audience, your assumption, pointed out immediately by me. Now, how do you know it's a shadow? Well, because my description assigns it as a shadow. That's what you're telling me. Yeah, that doesn't prove it's a shadow. Saying we've got an explanation and we call it umbra and penumbra in our model, again, doesn't prove it's a shadow. Just gives me your explanation for it with your assumptions attached. And they're on screen for my audience. Orbital assumptions. That's what you say proves it's a shadow. It doesn't. It's just your assumption. As pointed out immediately and now argued about unnecessarily for about the last half an hour.
Nathan, look, we know that if you cast a light source and you have a light source, an object, you put it in the light beam, you will have on the ground below it, you will see an umbra and penumbra. We know that shadows behave this way. And I'm not claiming that it is the Earth which is cast on the moon. I'm claiming that it is a shadow of an object. I don't care if it's the Earth or it's another object. At the moment,
Why have
my
you shown
only
me this
claim is
then?
that
Hold
it
on,
is
you're
the
now
shadow.
denying the thing you've taken me to. That's an outrage. You've just told me you're not claiming it's Earth getting in the way, yet you've directed me to page 10, and it's got Earth getting in the way in a heliocentric presuppositional orbital model. So yes, you are assuming that. That is exactly what you're assuming. Earth getting in the way, causing a shadow on the moon. With an orbital motion, that's precisely what you are assuming. Now you're telling me you're not assuming that. Like yesterday with Coriolis, when you tell me you're not assuming Earth turns underneath, when you describe Earth turning underneath the ball. The very thing you're claiming, you're now denying.
Just misunderstood.
It's on screen.
Why would we?
And
You
Nathan,
sent me,
first of
guys
all, I
in
want to
G+.
make clear that it is a shadow.
You've
We need
sent
that
me.
point first. After
You've
that, we
sent
can
me
talk
here.
about which object casts this shadow.
It's claimed to be the Earth in this example you've directed me to. In your presuppositional orbital
At the moment,
model.
I used this example to show you the penumbra and umbra.
Yeah. So your assumption that Earth gets in the way in a presupposed orbital model is your claim that it's proof that it's shadows because you've assumed orbital motion. That's not proof, that's your assumption of orbital motion. I keep telling you, you just won't accept it. Like you wouldn't accept that assuming Earth turns underneath stuff to cause drift would cause drift in other things, and then denying that you'd have drift in other things because you wouldn't, attached and moving together, are two positions simultaneously held. Well, your assumption that we have orbital motion isn't a proof that what you ascribe as a description for states that a light in the sky takes doesn't prove your assumption of orbital motion. Okay?
Nathan, I'm not talking about orbital motions.
You stupid dick. That is what you have directed me to on page 10. Do not now do what you did yesterday and immediately start denying the very thing you're claiming. Yes, you are claiming orbital motion. On screen, page 10, you directed me here in bold type, orbit of Earth. Absolutely the thing you're trying to claim. Absolutely the thing you're assuming. Yes, you are assuming it. Don't now do what you did yesterday and deny the very thing you're trying to prove, merely because I've pointed out it's an assumption that begs the question. You're begging the question, you're assuming your outcome, your justification for your assumption that the moon has got shadows on it is on screen. It is orbit. Don't now deny it. Stupid idiot.
Nathan, my whole claim at the moment is these pictures I've shown you.
Your claim is orbits. It's on screen. It's an assumption of orbits. That's your claim. It's on screen.
You can say what my claim is.
It's on screen! You sent me here! I can absolutely tell you what you're claiming. It's on screen. You provided this. It is your claim. I will tell you what you're claiming, and I'll rip it to pieces as an assumption. Your assumption requires geometric horizons that have been debunked by the Black Swan. It's merely a begging the question fallacy. You haven't proved that it's shadows. You've justified it with your assumption of orbital motion.
Nathan, I have proved that it's a shadow because it has a penumbra and umbra. That's my whole point at the moment.
Oh, so you're saying because you can cause a penumbra and umbra in an example you make on Earth, and your model would assume that this is the same effect, you have what's called a correlation then?
Nathan, if you have a light source...
So you have a correlation then? A correlation between your model and between something you've exampled with balls on the ground. So you've got a correlation then?
Nathan, unless you can show me...
And maybe you could agree with me that you have indeed just made a correlation. Correct? 6 more times maybe.
I'm saying it behaves like in shadow and...
Oh, it's correlated with something you exampled here. Correlated with it.
Nathan, what else hasn't penumbra?
And maybe it's time for a new question. Whenever I get somebody over the ropes, they repeatedly ask questions that are nothing to do with the thing I put to them. So you have a correlation then. Is that proof? Correlation?
The correlation, how would you say that?
It would be you correlating something you do with a ball and a torch on the ground with your fundamentalist religious presupposition of orbits. Those two things, according to you, are correlated.
This is like a very bad example you're doing right now.
My example? What, me summarising your example? What you're doing in your example is me making a bad example? No, my friend, it's me summarising your example of a correlation you're yet to just say yes to. Because you know where this will end up, don't you? I point out that you're merely correlating things and that's not proof. Hello? Just a correlation, my friend, between your fundy belief in an orbital mechanical model and something you do on the ground with or little models of things. Yeah? Things you assume are the same as the things in the sky. So you've got a correlation on your hands, my friend. Just need a yes.
Nathan, I'm saying that unless you can say what else is doing that penumbra...
Oh, I see. Unless I can come up with a just so story for it, your just so story stands in false dichotomy. No, mate, that's a fallacy. False dichotomy. I don't need to give you anything to absolutely pummel your presupposition of orbits and absolutely annihilate your correlation with your torch and balls. Tell me again that I've got to give you an alternative. So I can take a giant shit on it.
I'd also like to see a penumbra.
I'm researching something.
It's on screen. It's depicted in cartoon form. If you go to Master B, you'll see it in cartoon form with an assumed sun in an orbital motion, causing what he assumes is penumbra and umbra in cartoon form. And then he correlates that with the pictures that he's taken of the moon. So it's a correlation he's drawn between his fundy model and what he sees in the sky.
Are the rays of the sun in this cartoon model, are they parallel rays?
Go ahead, Kiwi.
Wait, can I say
causing
something?
the penumbra, which doesn't exist in reality. In this little cartoon, are the rays from the sun to the moon or to the earth, whatever, are they parallel rays?
Yeah, you can see them as parallel.
No, I can see
Oh,
them. I
really?
can see them converging. What are you talking about? Are you thick? Don't you know what parallel means?
Nathan, can you put that one up
It
there
is.
on screen?
It's on screen, clearly
Master B?
converging at a point that's got an arrow with the word penumbra pointing at it at the convergence point. Do you think that means parallel? Do you not know what parallel means? I'm being a bit unfair. Maybe it's English that's the problem here. My bad. Do you understand what parallel means?
I know what parallel means.
You do? Well, we've just asked you if these lines that converge at a point called penumbra are parallel, and you've said yes. When they're clearly not parallel.
They... Wait, what? How are they not parallel? Explain to me.
Because they're not parallel. How are these
Do parallel
convergent?
lines converge? It's a simple question. Do
Sorry.
parallel lines converge?
Do these
Because your
parallel
parallel
lines
lines appear to be
look
doing.
parallel to you? No, because they're not parallel. They've got a convergence point.
First of all, I wanted to make my point. I will address your point later.
Maybe you could just answer us, because so far we're a bit confused. We've asked you if these converging lines are parallel, and you've said yes. Do you want to correct your stupidity or
the
not?
fact is that the sun emits lights in all directions, like a person said in chat.
We were told they were parallel
So-
in the heliocentric model. We thought they were parallel. That's why we're asking about these converging lines, because we were under the, misapprehension that they're parallel? Are they not parallel?
The sun casts light into all direction.
You
We
got
told
big
them-
problems, son.
You'll
Big
lay it out for
problems.
him.
You're holding about 3 different contradictory positions at the same time.
Parts of a shadow created by any light source.
There's probably more than 3, but
John,
3
there you
that I
have it.
counted thus far. I just got here.
If you were emitting light from a gaseous ball, wouldn't the opposite be true? If you were to presume that the light would diverge. It starts from a smaller point. If anything, if they're not parallel, but even in their model, they should be diverging, shouldn't they? Because they're spreading out from a central point of a ball.
Yeah, like we see it all coming out, shining. Like kids draw suns, like with rays coming out in all directions. Not going into a point. What's
but
going
the
on
complete
there?
opposite of converging. They're going away from each other, aren't they?
Diverging.
Yeah. The complete opposite as to what's claimed, yeah.
We're a bit confused, Sam. This picture, this cartoon picture that you think proves that we've got penumbra, umbra, and that proves shadows, it's got lines that are not only not parallel, as described in the heliocentric model, and given that this is an orthographic representation, I'd absolutely expect them to be represented as parallel, and they're not. Further to that, what we actually experience in reality is divergent rays from the sun. Yeah, here we are with this orthographic representation and convergent rays that you've said are parallel, yet to actually concede that you were just wrong when you said yes, when we asked if these lines were parallel, when they're clearly not.
Nathan, have you heard of the Huygens principle?
Have you heard of what parallel
from
means?
each
Because you said
point
you understood
of,
parallel. We're talking about how these models and cartoons you're showing us don't seem to match up with what's claimed in the heliocentric model. In this instance, we're talking about the parallel lines that come in from the sun in this orbital model that you give us. Well, you've got them depicted as converging. What gives? Not parallel, mate. You said they were, and then we had to clarify that you knew what parallel was. You had a little snigger like you shouldn't, be questioned about your total understanding of parallel when you're showing us convergent lines and telling us they're parallel. Maybe we should move on to something else. No. Could you just concede that you've told us these lines in this picture are parallel and they're not? Either you don't understand what parallel was, or you were just, wrong? One or the other's true. Stupid or wrong? Which is it?
Nathan, I got a picture for
Nathan, it
you.
would be hard.
Hang on. Nathan, I got a picture for you, Master
See
B.
them as waves. Light behaves like a wave.
Whoa there, sunshine. Light's not waves. You're digging yourself deeper and deeper into incoherent gibberish. Light's
Light
not
is a wave.
waves, dude.
We've proven
Also,
it a while
is
ago.
this a natural cause and effect relationship?
No, it's an assumption of orbital motion.
What do you mean with light rays?
No, I'm talking about the.
We have experiments like Doppelspalt in
I'm
Germany. It's
talking
called.
about.
I
I'm
don't know
still
what's
talking.
in English.
He's
You
not
asked me a
listening.
question, so shut up. So, I'm talking about the eclipse itself. Is it a natural cause and effect relationship? Something's causing a shadow? Yes? No?
Yeah, the object between the sun and the earth is causing the
All right.
lunar
All right. So,
solar
you know, in
eclipse.
science, we have this thing called the scientific method that we use to adjudicate cause and effect relationships. Do you have a hypothesis here, please?
If you want a hypothesis, my hypothesis would be in this case, due to an object in between the sun and the earth. At some points of the earth, you can't see the sun anymore.
That's not a hypothesis. What's the
So
dependent
the
variable?
dependent variable would be the moon.
So
the dependent variable would be
is
the moon. The
That's-
independent one would be
I'm sorry.
my location
The
on Earth.
dependent variable can't be the moon. That's not a natural phenomena. That's a concrete noun.
What?
Can I give it you for it to save the pain? Its so-called non-hypothesis would be if orbital motion, then eclipse.
What's the null?
If orbital motion, no eclipse.
Where's the experiment?
Not possible. Can't vary orbital motion. It's merely an assumption.
That's my
we
point.
can vary
We don't need you to rip apart your stupid shit. Sit down, shut up. We're now demonstrating to the audience how stupid you are by ripping apart your nonsense. Your nonsense in hypothesis form would be if orbital motion, you're begging the question fallacy, then eclipses. Your null, if orbital motion, no eclipses. The orbital motion, your assumption, cannot be varied. This isn't science. You're stupid. Sit down. Listen. Try and take on board this, which is an education for you. Then I'd like a thank you. So thank you, Flat Earther. Can I have a thank you, please?
Nathan, by the way, we deflected from the topic of the shadow on the moon. I wanted to address it. The three distinct parts of a shadow are the penumbra, the umbra.
Sorry, so what he wants to do is chant his fundamentalist religious zealot belief at me again. You don't know it's a shadow, but you're going to start this whole process again by barking at me that your orbital assumption causes a shadow, you assume. Yeah, this is where we started, and what you're now doing, like most fundies, is chanting at me. You don't need to reclaim something I've just ripped to shreds. QE's taken you through it, I've taken you through it, and now we've summarised for the audience's benefit. Is that your cue to reassert your horseshit? No.
Nathan,
don't chant.
You didn't rip anything apart.
Don't chant! Sit down, shut up, and understand that we've ripped your shit to pieces. This nonsense has been demolished. We don't need it claiming again.
Nathan, I'm saying it again. The umbra, penumbra, and...
Shut the fuck up, you dumb zealot! Sit down and shut up. We don't need this happening 3 times again. We don't do that here anymore. Once we rip your nonsense to pieces and demonstrate for an audience how it's nonsense, why it's nonsense, and how we rip that nonsense to pieces, we expect you to say thank you. We don't expect you to chant your fundy belief at us over and over again. Now sit down. If you're not willing to accept how you've been demonstrated incorrect, don't chant your fundy belief afterwards. Yeah? Not getting a thank you is enough of an insult.
Nathan, how did you prove me wrong?
By pointing out that you don't have a natural phenomenon, you've got an assumption of orbits derived from R values that can't be measured by physical horizons. And that assumption gives you a justification by an assumption that you've got a shadow you haven't proven. And then you formulate that into, if I've got my orbital mechanics that I assume, then the shadow I've assumed is a shadow. Circular reasoning, total nonsense, ripped apart by me and QE. You just didn't listen. You're dumb. All you want to do is chant the same claim at us again, as we rip it to pieces and you don't listen.
Answering. Nathan, my question was, we see a penumbra and...
Chant for me.
No, you don't.
We see a penumbra. It's caused by the orbital mechanics. Chant for me, you fundy bitch.
This doesn't explain my question.
You didn't have, that wasn't a question. You didn't prove it in the first place. We disproved it anyway, but you still didn't prove it first. You just made a claim, a baseless claim that you parroted from Wiki. That's all you did.
Look, QE, we can see a penumbra and umbra on the moon.
No, you can't. Man, he's turned into a stuck record. All he's going to do is chant his fucking faith at us over and over and over again. We see a penumbra and umbra, it's caused by orbital mechanics. We see a penumbra and umbra, it's caused by orbital mechanics. He's just going to fucking chant at us non-stop if I don't just intervene and say, look, I've had enough, right? At some point, I'm going to take a vote to shut him up because I don't need the same shit 5 times from a zealot who needs to chant it at me. Stop it.
Nathan, look, first of all, I'm not talking about orbital mechanics right now. I'm just talking that...
Page 10 of his example that he gave as the example for this was orbital mechanics. It had the word fucking orbit in it. We put it on screen and pointed out that he had directed us to it. His justification for his claim that it's a shadow was that it's in an orbit. It had the word orbit on it. Now he's denying it. Do you think we need to go through this shit 5 more times as well, as you deny the very thing you're claiming? Not claiming orbit, but you've directed us to an example that says orbit in it, in bold type. Gonna deny the thing you claimed again, you stupid fundy zealot? Yeah, just because we've debunked your stupid nonsense assertion doesn't mean that you now have to deny it as being a claim you've made. No, it was a claim. Yes, it is the claim. Yeah, it's a begging the question fallacy. Yeah, we've ripped it apart. No, don't chant it at us 5 more times. No, don't now deny that you're claiming orbital mechanics. Yes, you are. You stupid zealot fundy.
Come up with another claim,
Nathan,
son.
I can't get along with you. That's like, oh god, you're shouting the whole time,
Come up with
interrupting.
another claim, son. You're toast. This one ain't happening.
No,
that
look,
dog ain't hunting here.
I think it's just sad because, look, I'm not saying it's fact that shadows have a penumbra and umbra, and we're seeing a penumbra and umbra on the moon. I'm not talking what is causing.
Will you shut the fuck up? Why are you chanting at us? I am so tired of zealots who have a religious belief, having their religious belief taken to pieces and then thinking it's necessary to spend the rest of the show chanting the same claim at us. Stop it!
Nathan!
Nathan, I've got penumbra and umbra and I assume orbits. Nathan, I've got penumbra and umbra and I assume orbits. Just fucking chant at us indefinitely, mate. That's what you need to do here. You need to chant at us non-stop. Chant through us, chant at us.
Nathan, I just want an answer. What is causing this penumbra and umbra?
Who gives a flying fuck? I don't make a claim about it. You've claimed it's caused by orbits. I've ripped that to pieces. There is absolutely zero necessity to me to make up a just so story to appease you after yours has been ripped to pieces. I can just open my fly, take off my belt, do a giant shit on your claim, and then walk away laughing as you chant at me, covered in shit.
So that's how flat Earth works? Okay.
Yeah, I rip apart a fundamentalist religious zealot's belief and then walk away laughing. Do I have to provide you an alternative? No, I do not.
The first part is not true. The second one, it works out with you.
I haven't claimed anything. There's nothing to work out for me. I've just ripped your claim apart. That would be your claim that orbital mechanics and assumptions of shadows are justified by you taking me to page 10 with the word orbit and later saying I don't claim orbits. You double-speaking fundy zealot.
At the moment, it looks for me like you said you destroyed my argument, but you haven't provided any evidence which destroys my argument. Second of all, you say you don't have to prove that this is a shadow. You don't have to prove what's causing the shadow. So I have to prove everything, and you say I haven't proven anything as I prove it, and then you say you don't have to prove anything either.
No, I gave you examples of how I disprove what you claim. You just didn't listen to any of them. You hand-waved them and then reasserted the exact same claim that had been pulled apart. We asked you how you know it's a shadow. You told us that because something's getting in the way of something else, it must be a shadow. You also gave us a correlation. Not proof. Assumptions of orbital motion and correlations between little lights and little marbles with torches. Correlations. So that's what I've done. I've taken apart your assumptions and correlations. That's what I've actually done. Now, you haven't repeated back to me what I've actually taken apart your arguments with and then attacked them in any way. But you have told me that, no, you just haven't done anything. Well, I have. You've ignored every word of it, though.
This is the worst case of global illness. He started the whole talk by saying Earth got in the way, creating the shadow. Then when you press him, he says, well, I'm not saying Earth's causing the shadow.
Let's say it like this. Nathan was screaming at me the whole time on the Earth thing. So I just was saying it's a shadow on the moon. I'm not saying it's the Earth shadow or any...
So I'm just saying it's a shadow. I'm not saying it's Earth shadow. I'm just saying it's a shadow. but it's not Earth shadow. Here's page 10 with it described as being Earth shadow, something I'm not saying. Yeah, you're in total cognitive dissonance, mate.
Nathan, at the moment, I'm just saying it's a shadow because it has penumbra and umbra. What
So
is
just saying it's a shadow is you assuming it's a shadow. Yeah? What, changing assuming to just saying makes it okay? Yeah, I'm just saying it's a shadow. I know, that's the point. Just saying it's a shadow doesn't make it so.
I'm not just saying it's a shadow. I've shown you pictures.
So I'm just saying it's a shadow. I'm not saying it's a shadow. I am saying it's a shadow. You're in total cognitive dissonance. Please go away.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's a shadow because we can see in penumbra and umbra.
Yeah, back to chanting. Now chant orbital mechanics at me and then deny them again afterwards when we pull them apart.
Yep.
Chant. Come on, get on the desk and start chanting at us.
Nathan, I don't want to continue this conversation because you can.
Thank you. You're the first guy that
So I give you evidence for it, and you just rejected it by saying you destroyed it.
You gave me evidence. What evidence? Hold on. What evidence did you give me? What evidence did you give me? This. It's a cartoon.
I've shown you pictures of penumbras and umbras.
No. You've shown me a cartoon with a description of orbital mechanics. I've got it on screen for my audience right now. This picture you gave me. These are pictures of eclipses. I say, how do you assume it's a shadow? Well, by way of this diagram, with the sun in an orbit around a spherical Earth with, well, are they divergent, convergent, or parallel? We'll just brush past that. But this is a assumption of orbital mechanics, with physical bodies, the moon, physical bodies, the sun, physical bodies, the Earth, the full shebango, an orbital mechanical assumption. Now, that is what you have claimed. Here it is on screen.
I've shown you actual pictures of the moon with.
And you've shown us pictures of actual orbital mechanics, or is it a cartoon? Because this is claimed to be your evidence. You've said I've given you evidence and I've ignored it. This isn't evidence, it's a cartoon that depicts your assumption of orbits. That's what this is. Your cartoon depiction of your assumption? That's what this is.
This is an actual photograph I'm showing you.
Oh, this is an actual photograph of a cartoon sun, is it? It's an actual photo of your orbital mechanical assumption. No, it's a cartoon, you dumb shit.
Wait, which photograph are you talking
No,
about?
it's not a photograph. It's not a photograph. It's not a photograph. It's a piece of claimed to be evidence that apparently I've ignored. And you've got pictures of eclipses. I say, how do you know that's a shadow? And how do I know it's a shadow is orbital mechanics, as I keep pointing out. And there's a cartoon alongside it that says, look, this is how it works. That's your picture that you gave us where you assume orbital mechanics. Simple. Maybe deny it like I predicted about 3.5 minutes ago that you would at this stage. So now deny that you're claiming orbital mechanics for me, like a fundy bitch zealot in cognitive dissonance. Deny it now. I'm not claiming orbital mechanics like this cartoon. Not a picture, by the way, it's a cartoon.
My claim is shadows. We know how shadow works.
Chant it for me, bitch. Yeah, chant that shit. Yeah, I assume shadows. Why? Because these pictures here have got a cartoon above them that has got orbital mechanics depicted, and that would make it shadows, right?
What do you mean with I witnessed it with my own eyes. It's not.
You witnessed this cartoon of orbital mechanics, do you? No, you don't. You stupid idiot. It's a cartoon. You witness the eclipse and then assume it's a shadow. And when we say, why are you assuming it's a shadow? The cartoon is why.
Oh, goddammit. You're claiming actual photographs are cartoons and our eyes are also seen.
You think this is a cartoon? This is a cartoon. It's got a cartoon. What do you want? Your explanation for these pictures, these 3 pictures, total, annular, and partial, have got a cartoon above them.
Could I say something about the 2017 Celine Leon eclipse?
Yeah, sure. The impossible eclipse that doesn't work. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if this was said earlier because I was listening, but I was away from the phone. There was 2 things about that really stood out. One was the color of the moon. It was like a red-pink color. And the second one was the darkening that came across it, came from the top right-hand corner, across down a diagonal to the bottom left-hand corner, and then left the bottom left-hand corner and went back out the top right-hand corner. And out didn't move. So I don't know how he was going to get around that one with his diagram.
It goes red because it's a shadow. Shadows do that.
Wow.
This is the first guy who's a baller that's ever turned this whole argument so upside down. Up until this point, everybody on their side says the earth is in the way, casting the shadow. And this guy says no.
I agree. It's a phenomenon.
Very helpful, Neil.
What? I'm not saying it's not the Earth. I'm saying I don't care which object it is at the moment. You're strawmanning me. You're changing my argument.
Oh, my bad. I see. I understand. What you mean is you want to now draw the correlation again. So it could be something in an example that you'll correlate with it, maybe? I don't know how I know that. It's almost like we've gone through this once already.
Nathan, the three distinct...
Sigh for me, you little Sunday bitch. That's right, I love those sighs. They make my day.
So please, I won't talk anymore, but please do not claim anything I said.
Well, because you've said it already, and you'd prefer if you could double speak around what you'd said without it being a problem? No, you're going to correlate it with something now, aren't you? So when you say it's not the heliocentric model in the cartoon depiction that I've given you, it's not that. It could be something else that's blocking it that causes it. And then you'll correlate it with your fundamentalist presupposition that we've got orbital mechanics. It is actually not sarcasm. It is because we have gone through this once with you before. And this is basically me allowing, because for some reason the panel members seem to want to egg it on, you just chanting it at us again. Yeah, in a little circle of cognitive dissonance where you need to assert it again, even though it's been taken apart. And at the end, you'll say, we took apart nothing. And then when this concludes, in about 4.5 minutes' time, you'll start again and you'll say, but we've got penumbra and umbra caused by orbital mechanics. It'll happen again and again and again. It's chanting, mate. We call it chanting. It's what you're doing right now. Peace is beautiful. Radius Dominus, Gravitus Spiritus Sanctus Arwin.
You must be out and about.
Moment of silence for the globe.
Yeah, don't give me this freaking address. I'm going to go freaking bananas.
Hey, hot mic.
Sorry.
Go in peace. In our you trust.
So the guy who's an expert on shadows can't explain why the shadow's upside down.
What was that the shadow of again?
A presupposition that Earth's getting in between the moon and the sun.
Doesn't matter what it's a shadow of, Chocolate. Can you just accept it's a shadow?
Whoa, we're still on to the moon shadow?
Never left.
How do you know it's a shadow, are we?
Shadow.
So wouldn't shadow imply physical objects? Where's the proof of that?
Well, you just assume it.
Yeah, but assuming is not proof.
Well, then you just correlate it with something that is physical, that you can make look like it.
Well, correlation is not causation.
Well, that was quick.
Same answer to the same question in another medium.
I love Arwin. He can chant so much faster than the fundies.
Wait, what? No, I was not defending the ball.
No, you're going back and forth as devil's advocate to summarise the motions, but without all the fundy interruption. Just the summary. I'm giving you proper kudos. It wasn't sarcastic kudos or claiming you're a baller defending it. You're just summarising what's just happened with the other guy really succinctly. Kudos.
So we're back to the point where you no longer necessarily know where I am, because that is how it kind of started out the first year. I was making so many weird, unidentified arguments at the time that most of you actually thought that I was on the ball side because I got so passionate about going against certain flat earth arguments that were being used at the time.
Yeah, we know better now, Arwin. And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK energy supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!